moving towards the, now we come to the MASSA, I would say, okay, which is a kind of one of the savior of the Indian seafarers, about like the umbrella of MASSA. So can you little bit put a light on the MASSA and its role with the Indian seafarers?
Thank you for this question. See, the history of MASSA, what you see today, is only a tip of the iceberg. The foundation of MASSA, or the precursor to MASSA, was something known as OACC, Owners Agent Committee Crew. This was a legacy of the British before pre-independence. There were a large number of ships with Indian crew which were actually British owned, P&Os and Dorchester and all these Ellerman lines, City lines. They had Indian crew on board, and these crew were routed through the shipping master here to ensure that they were not taking away jobs of the British sailors. There was something known as a National Maritime Board set up in UK to protect their jobs, because we were actually a British colony. So there was,
no doubt about
technically British. So they created an equivalent here called National Maritime Board India. And the National Maritime Board India, which comprised of seafarers unions and OSCC and some other companies, INSA in particular, negotiated the seafarers' wages here so that they do not undercut the British, which is good for us actually. And that they provided a lot of jobs to the Indian seafarers, huge number. And if you may remember, there was something called Seamen's Employment Office in Baladi State.
Right.
So every morning people would muster there and the ship's name would be put up on the notice board, and they would say, okay, one bosun I want, one sarang I want, and that's how they apparently work. So MASSA or OACC is an integral part of the progress of the Indian seafarers since independence. And in fact, in our office, we have the second NMBI agreement of 1957. We have a copy of that, and subsequent ones. Right up to the 70s, the NMBI was very much there, but there were certain MASSA companies. At the time, the members were like Chevron and Mobil and Exxon. They were members of MASSA. Today also they are members, but through their agencies here now, or through their companies here now. And they set up or supported the setting up of the first tanker safety and chemical tanker safety, and LBS College was done through OACC, through Mobil and Chevron, because they wanted their officers to be trained. So they set up the course here, and it was LBS College which set up, because that was the premier institute at the time here. Similarly, the first firefighting course, which was set up at TS Rahman, was set up with the support of OACC. Because funding was a bit of a challenge, and there were certain seats reserved for OSCC, because they gave the money, so they had some priority. In 1992, when the Comet report chaired by Dr. C.P. Srivastav was tabled, it was then decided that the government should voluntarily encourage the user to pay for the training, because a significant shift took place from the Indian flag to the foreign flag in the late 80s because of the transformation that was taking place. You may remember that the 80s saw the biggest ever slowdown in merchant shipping, and a lot of Indian companies suffered at the time, and they closed down. So there was a significant amount of joblessness in India. In fact, there was something called a Nanda committee on the rating training issue, and the committee recommended to shut down the training institutes which the government was operating because of the joblessness that was being created. So the TS Mekhla, TS Bhadra, which were the government owned institutes, they stopped training. so that they didn't add to the pool of unemployed seafarers. The role has changed now. It is totally 180 degrees, and people want to start maritime education for the ratings now, training. So that in 1992, so OACC transformed into MASSA and registered, because before that it was an association of companies which did not require a registration. It was an association. But once we registered, then we had to follow the ROC, the Registrar of Company Rules, etc., etc. And we have now. So, though on paper we look like a 30-year-old organization, we are not. We are actually almost 75 years. Yeah, we are a 75-year-old organization. We then took up and supported the maritime education and training. There was earlier an avatar called MMERT, if you may have heard of it. So we supported that. And by 1999, we realized that this is not enough. We needed to do more, because STCW 95 had come into the picture and there was quite a bit of training required. So we started in a small way in Balad State by setting up a small training center to conduct the basic safety training courses and tanker safety courses, familiarization courses, the PSSR course, because all the ratings had to be put through that. So we started with that, and we then moved to Navi Mumbai and set up a proper institute in Great Eastern Summit. And of course, that institute has grown in the last 25 years. Over a 25-year-old period, we have had now more than 50,000 seafarers who have passed.
I am one of that, sir. Few courses I have done from the
So
MASSA.
you will know that. So what it was, and we now, try to maintain a certain standard, what it should be for the maritime industry. Not many at the time were wanting to start the post-sea courses because they are more challenging to have. PC is easier in that sense because the students are just off school. So, the requirement of teachers is quite different there than in the post-sea. While post-sea is all about competence and not shaping the future. That role is a bit secondary compared to the competency training, etc. So the journey has been a long one, yes, but I think it has been quite satisfying even for MASSA. Though we would like to see something more happen. The world is changing. So let's see where we